Now, why do you feel that Scotch whiskey is much maligned?
Well, because for me, I've been in the business for 27 years now, and 90% of America broke into their father's liquor cabinet when they were 12, drank a bottle of Scotch, and swore never to touch it ever again. That's what I'm up against. So for me, my challenge is showing people the ways to enjoy whiskey.
Hanging out here at Copper and Oak, waiting for Simon Brooking, the whiskey expert here in the Lower East Side. Here comes my man. I can hear him as he approaches. Simon,
Reggie?
thank you for doing this.
Oh, it's great to
Really,
be here.
Yeah. Really appreciate you doing this for me.
Yeah.
You're looking really sharp, bro.
Thank you very much. Well, I've got a little something for you.
What, a pool stick?
It's a surprise. Hold on to it for later.
I don't think this is a pool stick.
Come on, let's go in.
Yo, this is Reg Ferguson, Fashion Geek #1. How are you? Welcome to the ride. Thank you so much for listening. I'm a men's fashion consultant here in New York City, and I help men go from fashion confused to fashion confident. If you ever found yourself staring at the closet, not knowing what to wear, or if the idea of shopping for clothes makes you feel physically ill, then this is the show for you. My goal with every episode is to help make looking good feel easy. If you ever want my help, email me at reg@nyfashiongeek.com for a consultation. If you have a friend who's looking to level up his fashion style wardrobe game, please share an episode with them. While you're at it, if you dig the show and haven't already left us a review and a rating, please consider doing so now. Your shares, ratings, and reviews help us grow the show and help us get the best possible guests and help more men dress their best. Today, we're going to talk with Simon Brooking, who is a senior ambassador of Scotch heritage at Beam Suntory. I didn't even know that was a thing. And we're here at Copper and Oak, here in New York City, Manhattan, the LES, Lower East Side. And we're going to talk about something the everyday man should have an interest in. Why should we be so interested in Scotch whiskey? Well, I don't know, Simon. It's up for you to tell us. But hey, Simon is in the building. How are you, sir?
Very good. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no. Thanks for inviting me into this wonderful bar. Big shout out to Copper and Oak and Hunter, who was so gracious to give us this time. We're here on the off period. So, before we go into our topic, Simon, please tell us. So what do you do?
Well, I represent 5 of the single malt scotches from the Beam Suntory portfolio. Auchentoshan from the Lowlands, Glengarry and Ardmore from the Highlands, and Laphroaig and Bowmore from the island of Islay.
He knows that I actually have a connection with one of those islands. So maybe we'll talk about that later. So I want to be very clear, and Simon already knows this because we've met before. I am a naif to all of these things. And I just think it's wonderful that they literally have someone like yourself who, just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, he's not just a mayor ambassador. He's won this award, 7 years in a row? Like, they have this thing. It's amazing. So I really think, for myself and for the listener, Simon, talk us through all of this.
Absolutely. Well, Scotch can be a much maligned spirit, but appreciated by the world over. It is unique, it is versatile, it has tons of flavor, but a lot of times people are have a hard time just understanding the variety that's out there. A lot of people feel like it just burns, but there are ways to enjoy. I think you can find a whiskey for everybody, and there's a whiskey waiting for you, Reggie. As we go through the tasting today, we're going to taste whiskies from the Highlands of Scotland as well as from the islands of Scotland. And the regions will impact the style of flavors of the spirit due to the climate, and the historical aspects of whiskey production in Scotland.
Now, why do you feel that Scotch whiskey is much maligned?
Well, because for me, I've been in the business for 27 years now, and 90% of America broke into their father's liquor cabinet when they were 12, drank a bottle of Scotch, and swore never to touch it ever again. That's what I'm up against. So for me, my challenge is showing people the ways to enjoy whiskey. When I say whiskey, I mean Scotch, and that could be a blended Scotch or a single malt Scotch. There are ways to appreciate these fine spirits, just little tricks that we do that just help you find the different flavors that you enjoy in the whiskeys.
Well, for someone like me who truly doesn't have a palate, how does one start?
Well, first of all, go to your local pub, your local bar, your local whiskey bar. Coppernoke is a great example.
It's a beautiful place.
The folks here at Coppernoke, Tomo, and his crack staff are very knowledgeable in the category, and ask your bartender what recommendations can you make, and a lot of times the question that they will ask of you is, well, what do you normally drink? You know, what is your drink of fashion? Do you want something similar to that, or do you want something polar opposite? Because you can find different flavors that are familiar flavors in the whiskey, because for example, we age in majority of the casks in Scotland are bourbon barrels.
Yeah, I saw, did some research.
Yeah, so there are elements of the bourbon notes, the vanilla, the caramel notes, the sweetness, the coconut notes coming from the bourbon barrels that people will identify with when they're tasting a single malt Scotch. The other option is, in terms of maturation, are the casks, Oloroso sherry casks, which were predominant during the 19th century when sherry was a drink of fashion. So the whiskey producers took those sherry casks and used them to transport their whiskey to market. And those sherry casks imparted flavor into the whiskeys. So if you are a wine drinker, I recommend sherry casked single malt scotches.
Sure, that makes sense to me. There's a parallel.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to enjoy whiskey. Neat, on the rocks, splash of water, as a cocktail. Scotch actually became popular in the latter part of the 19th century when sherry was a drink of fashion, but the phylloxera plague, this beetle, wiped out all the vineyards of France, so there were no grapes available, so there was no brandy available. So that's when Scotch and soda became the drink of fashion. And that's because the British Empire at that point stretched throughout the world. That's when Scotch really took off. So we'll raise a glass to that beetle here this afternoon. Otherwise we'd be drinking brandy. I'd much rather be drinking the whiskey.
Now, spoiler alert, I'm a former bartender here in New York City.
Right.
And though I don't claim to know a lot about whiskey, right, I'm very humble about all of this. The one thing I know about any type of high-level spirit is generally, in my mind, you want it neat or on the rocks, and you don't want it as a mixed drink. Now, the one you referenced, Scotch and soda, to me, that's one of the great simplicities of a mixed drink.
Right.
My point is, what is your opinion about, for example, I remember doing some research, and I saw a whiskey being used as a Paloma. So, you know, what's your opinion about mixed drinks with this type of spirit?
I think it's a great opportunity to introduce people. The mixed drinks and mixology is a big part of the spirits industry today, globally. Sure. So there's an opportunity, as long as you're not bastardizing the flavors of the whiskey.
Well, that's the catch.
I mean,
where's the line?
You want to be able to
line?
highlight the flavors. And a great example is a cocktail called Penicillin, developed by Sam Ross of Milk and Honey fame here.
Here in the city. Yeah.
And it's a takeoff on a sour using a lemon sour and ginger with a blended Scotch as a base, and then you use our Laphroaig 10-year, our smoky Laphroaig 10-year as a floater. And so it's present. It's present on the nose, but it doesn't overtake. A well-balanced cocktail, I think, is key to the success of using single malt scotches as a part of a cocktail.
Okay. All right. So you're accepting.
Absolutely.
All right. However you get them to drink it. So, it seems like you've done something very special for me. Now, I'm looking at a map here, and the map seems to have my clan. Seems like you know my surname.
Well, as a Ferguson, you definitely belong in the Highlands of Scotland.
That is correct.
And you belong in a kilt. You should be wearing a kilt. I'm not joking now.
Well, hey, I don't know. I love this suit. This is a pretty cool suit.
Well, one of these days, Reggie, we're going to get you in a kilt.
If you get me in a kilt, that probably means St. Patrick's Day is coming and I'm delirious. That's all I'm saying.
But
you look sharp. I mean, you look really...
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I say a man in a kilt's a man and a half.
Oh, my God.
There you have it.
Okay. Sheesh. I thought this was a drinks conversation, not a fashion conversation. So, it seems like we're starting out with Laphroaig.
We're gonna.
Or we're not, or we are. What are we doing?
We're gonna start off with Beaumont.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before we start, I thought you told me when we had our meeting here that I thought you said to me there were times that Beaumont actually ran out of product. Am I incorrect? Did you tell me that?
No, that's our other Glengarry.
Oh, it was Glengarry.
From the Highlands.
Okay.
They didn't run out of product, they ran out of water, but that's because that kind of highlights the delicacy of the supply chain for us in whiskey production. Every distillery has its own water source in Scotland, and during the summer there's the period of time known as the silent season, and historically that was when there wasn't enough water to make whiskey. So the boys who were farmers would go work the fields until the rains came, and then when they had enough water from the rains, that's when they would go and start making whiskey again.
Oh, wow.
So if you come to Scotland, when you come to Scotland, and
all these assumptive closes. Continue.
I always recommend checking ahead, because during the height of the summer, many of the distilleries in Scotland will be shut down.
Well, they shut, yeah, so shut down.
They do their yearly upkeep and maintenance. So you'll still get a tour, but you won't necessarily see the whiskey being produced.
Okay.
And if you've traveled all this way, you want to see it being made.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, are we talking a typical 3-month layoff or a little bit longer? How historically generally is it done?
It's usually 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, that's long.
Yeah, but there have been times when some of the distilleries that I've worked with have been closed in February.
Really?
Yeah, I mean that kind of highlights the climate change and the different changing weather patterns these days.
When someone is a distiller or purveyor, how does that make them feel when they know they have to go beyond the typical 6-8 weeks?
Frustrated, because you want to get into a rhythm when it comes to making whiskey, because it's when you shut down and restart the distilleries, that's when you have inconsistency in your spirit. When you've got it working when it's a well-oiled machine, it's the spirit that you produce is much more predictable, and you want to stay consistent.
Sure.
But it is a very individual experience. Each distillery has their own team, and every distillery, the size and shape of the stills are different. The fermentation times, the mashing times are all different, and it's the location and the time spent in the warehouse maturing the spirit is different for each distillery. They are all contributing factors to what makes each single malt whiskey unique.
And that's going to really be interesting to me when we do comparisons between brands and regions.
Right.
So How should we start this game?
Let us start with the second oldest licensed distillery in Scotland, the oldest licensed distillery on the island of Islay, Bowmore. Bowmore means the big rock, the big reef.
Oh, wow.
A lot of times the whiskies names themselves will tell you exactly where the boys were hiding their stills back in the day. So Bowmore is the big rock, the big reef. Laphroaig means the hollow by the bay. Glengeary, the one we were talking about before, that means the valley of the granary.
Oh, wow.
So, but let's dive into a little bit of Bowmore.
Okay.
That'll be the first one on the bottom right there.
Okay.
Bowmore, this is our 12-year variation. When we say 12 years for single malt Scotch or a blend, it is the age of the youngest whiskies that go into the bottling.
Oh.
So there's 12, 13, 14-year-old spirit in this. Now it's not a blended Scotch. A blended Scotch is a blend of different single malts plus a neutral grain alcohol. A single malt is made out of pure malted barley, distilled in copper pot stills at a single distillery, aged in oak barrels for a minimum of 3 years by law before it can legally be called a single malt Scotch. So Bowmore only makes Bowmore, Laphroaig only makes Laphroaig, and so forth. There's no such thing as a double malt.
I wouldn't even thought about that.
Well, we get that question a lot. But single malts were the producers, were the farmers who were making, who had extra grain at the end of the season, and it was more profitable, more economical for them to make a whiskey out of it, rather than to lose it to the mold or the mildew of the cold damp winter months. And it gave them another commodity to sell at market,
Sure.
and it gave them a nice whiskey to keep them warm during those long cold winter months. And they were producing so much during the latter part of the 18th century that the English wanted to cash in on all that commerce. So they legalized whiskey production, and that was the Excise Act of 1823. So that's when the whiskey production literally came down from the hills, and we're at the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution. And one of the stipulations were that the sides of the stills, which to this point were the size of a chair, made small, easy to move, easy to hide.
All right.
So they said, if you want to make the whiskey legally, you have to be at least 1,000 gallons. And you can't hide 1,000 gallons still. You can't move that. So
how big is a still that holds 1,000 gallons?
It's about 8 to 10 foot across.
Wow. All right.
And they run about 14 to 17 foot high.
Whoa. Okay.
And the taller they are, the lighter the spirit. The smaller squat stills that you're going to find.
Oh, because it's the concentration.
Exactly. Think about them as kind of glorified tea kettles. And we put the heat under it. We create a rolling boil to distill a beer, because we make it's a barley-based spirit. So we make a beer, and then the difference between beer and whiskey is that with whiskey we distill, and then we mature, we age in casks.
Oh, wow.
So as we dive into our whiskey tasting here, we'll look at the the color of the spirit in comparison with the other whiskeys. The darker spirits will tend to be more sherry influenced.
All right.
And I mean sherry oloroso, sherry cask
Yeah, the
influence.
cask.
It's actually not sherry. There's sherry in the wood itself.
Understood.
But
The provenance of the wood, aka.
yes, exactly. So we'll look at the beautiful color of the whiskey, and then we nose it. Now, when you're nosing it, I recommend getting your nose into the glass. None of the mamby-pamby waving about. But part your lips. I'll demonstrate like this. Because when you nose it with your mouth closed, you're getting full alcohol. It numbs the senses, anesthetizes your nose, and makes your head kick back. Now, you might like that experience. But for the sake of getting more of the layers of the spirit, breathe into your nose with your mouth open. And switch nostrils. Not with your neighbor, just from left to right. Because when you nose it full on, you're going to get more of the burn. So you want to cut the alcohol, and one nostril does tend to be more sensitive than the other.
I've never done that before.
Now we'll have a toast and we'll have a taste. But when you taste, the other recommendation I like to make is placing the glass more towards the middle of the tongue. Because when you sip at the front, you get the sweet,
Yeah,
which is fine.
when we met, you told me
Yeah,
that.
that's a
I've
big-
forgotten that since.
This is a game changer, this one here. Because when I mentioned before 90% broke into the father's liquor cabinet when they were 12, they drank, first thing they did was they nosed it with the mouth closed. So, you see people's heads reel back because
Right.
that experience comes roaring back. And then that bad experience continues when they place the glass at the front of the mouth and sip it, and they get all the alcohol. We want to get to the essence of the flavors of the spirit.
Wow.
So we'll place the glass middle of the tongue and just a sip and swirl it around, roll it around in your mouth, because that way you're going to taste all the different layers of the spirit.
Oh,
So
smell.
here's to Beaumont, and here's the toast. May the best you've ever seen be the worst you'll ever see. May our mouse never leave your pantry with a teardrop in his eye. May you all be hale and hearty till you're old enough to die. May I wish you all the best, as we all wish you all to be. Cheers.
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 Oh, wow. Wish me luck, guys. Never drank a spirit like that before.
Yeah, try front, try middle. You get two very different experiences.
Well, fortunately, there was no burn, no snap of my neck, no kickback. I fortunately was not the kid who broke into my grandfather's cabinet. That's a long story, but I didn't. But I clearly like to have a taste, in the words of my late grandfather. Wow.
So this is 90% bourbon barrels and 10% Oloroso sherry casks. So basically for every 9 barrels of Beaumont 12 and 13, 14-year-old whiskey, we're going to add in 1 Oloroso sherry cask.
Mm.
And that's called concurrent maturation. It's all happening at the same time. We're going to pull the barrels down off the rack, marry them, add water, bring it down to bottling strength. And this 12-year is a fantastic introduction to the Islay style of single malt scotches. Islay is the island off the southwest coast of Scotland.
Yes.
Where,
My clan hung out. That was one of my clan hangouts.
yes,
I know.
well, it's a good whiskey making haven.
Why
It was
is that?
Well, because it's along, you can see the taxman coming from miles away, so you can hide those extra stills where you're making a few extra pennies on the side. It's the truth.
I'll take your word for it.
A lot of people moved to the islands because of the isolation, because
Sure.
of they wanted the privacy.
Right. They could do their own thing.
And in fact, the Johnston brothers at Laphroaig came from the mainland to farm Islay. And again, it was farmers who just wanted the independence and wanted that, they craved the isolation. But it's not an easy life living on an island that's raining 320 days a year horizontally.
Oh.
So that's why you drink the whiskey.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I'm going to make a recommendation.
Sure.
We're going to add a couple of drops of water to it.
All right.
And just a couple of drops.
Okay.
And like dew on a rose, it opens up the bouquet.
Why does it do that? I remember going to a Johnny Walker tasting, and they did that.
Well, it breaks up the oils. It makes it more the surface. It opens up the surface. Go ahead and have a nose of it and see if you get a different. Give it just a little swirl there.
I'm not going to lie, I'm not certain.
That's all right. It's for you to experiment and take your time with. You know, if you're not getting anything from adding a couple of drops of water, maybe you need to add a couple more drops of water. All of these whiskeys take water differently, and they take water differently for all of us. So it's really a matter of personal preference. And you only have a sip of it and see if that changes.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Slange.
So. It seems like, and tell me if I'm wrong, I know it's my own experience, but it seems like it softened it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just 2 drops.
Just that. Just a couple of drops.
That's crazy.
Well, it doesn't take a lot to influence the flavor of the whiskies, and that's why we'll use the single malts in the blend recipes of blended scotches, the likes of Bowmore or Laphroaig. You don't need a lot to influence the flavor in the final flavor profile.
So that means that really this spirit is just amazingly complex and subtle then.
Absolutely. There are many layers to it, and shown certainly. Let's take our next whiskey to show you the variations that happen. So all of the whiskey that we're tasting from Bowmore, this first round, it's all coming off the still exactly the same way. So now what you're going to experience is an extra 3 years in the casks. This is a 15-year-old Bowmore. 12 years in bourbon, and then we transfer it to Oloroso sherry for another 3 years. So this is what we call consecutive maturation. It starts off in one barrel, and then we move it to another for an extended period of time.
Wow.
So this has got more of the sherry influence on it. Give a nose at that there.
Okay. Yeah, the nose is quite different. I feel that it's a little bit sweeter.
Sweeter, there's a little spiciness to this.
Mm.
So this is when we taste this one here, and when enjoying your whiskey, room temperature is really the best, and room temperature for us in Scotland is about 52 degrees.
All right.
So it's a little bit cooler, but it's not cold.
All right.
Here in America, where I think ice was made for bourbon and bourbon was made for ice, you can add a cube if you like to it. Those larger cubes always work better because you're getting more of it, reducing the temperature and not adding too much water.
Right, I was going to say, those big ones, right, they don't melt as quickly.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
I have one of those molds. I rarely use them.
Yeah, well, it's a good way to just kind of experiment with the flavor. But there's a ton of flavor in this whiskey at room temperature. If you cool it down, it tends to shut down some of the aromatics.
So lower than 52 is
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
So like if someone decided, oh, I'm going to take a bottle and put it in my fridge.
Well, if you do that and then pour it, it's going to pour very heavy, very viscous, very thick.
Oh.
And then the nose on it will be much tighter. And as it starts to warm up to room temperature, it whiskey like wine will open up. So let's have a toast. This is to the Spanish and their sherry casks, otherwise we wouldn't have this one here. Saluda, dinero, amor, y el tiempo para conquistarlo todo. Health, wealth, love, and the time to conquer all.
Yeah, it's bilingual. Salud.
Salud.
This is distinctly different to me.
There's the mouthfeel on this. There's a little bit more of a velvety. There's a creamy quality to this.
I get the velvet.
And that's more the Oloroso sherry.
I like this.
This is a great recommendation. It's
Tasty.
starting to move into towards a kind of an Armagnac quality.
I'm not so familiar with Armagnac, but I like this. This is yummy.
Yeah. And it's one of our big sellers.
Really?
Yeah, Bowmore 15 year. It's kind of the classic style, which is using that combination of bourbon and sherry casks with a little bit more sherry. It's more historically accurate to the way the whiskeys were bottled back in the late 19th century.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's our 15-year Bowmore.
Right?
We're going to take a big leap now. We're going to go another 10 years
Holy cow.
into the past.
Wow.
And to me, drinking single malt whiskey is about time travel. Now, you have to be careful because this is pretty powerful spirit, and I do find folks who have, sometimes they enjoy the whiskey so much so that they wake up the next morning fully clothed, not knowing where they were the night before, but somehow they did time travel.
Well, I have an event to go to later, so I don't want to travel time too much.
No, and we encourage folks to drink responsibly. I mean,
I know
in the safety
that.
of your home, or if you're out and you need assistance in getting home, please have somebody designated drive for you.
Well, that's the MTA for me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we have got, we're going to travel back in time 25 years now.
Mm.
So this is...
I was a baby.
I'll drink to that. So this is our 25-year Bowmore. Bowmore in its 20s moves from dark fruit notes to tropical fruit notes.
How did that happen?
From its time in the casks, in the warehouses of Bowmore, the Bowmore warehouses are located right by the sea, and because it's a cooler, damper climate, it allows us to leave our whiskies aging in these warehouses for longer periods of time, definitely compared to American whiskey maturation. They're using brand new American oak barrels, American oak staves, so that really impacts the spirit, the bourbon that they produce, takes on more of the wood much sooner. So we use used barrels, whether they're bourbon barrels or Oloroso sherry casks. So they are a little damper when we receive them. There's moisture in them from the spirit, but also in that cooler, damper climate, there's less of inhalation and exhalation of the barrels. The barrels breathe. During the summer they expand and they force the whiskey into the wood. In the winter they contract and draw the whiskey back out.
Sure.
We lose 2% of evaporation every year. We call that the angel's share.
Yes.
The happiest angels in the world are over the island of Islay. But also during that respiration of the barrels, it's moving through the wood and pulling aspects of the wood and the oils into the spirit, while releasing other components of the spirit itself. And in the 20s, you get these secondary and tertiary aromatics that start to develop, and these flavors that start to develop. And we're not doing anything with the casks. It's just Mother Nature and the barrels breathing. It's the life of the cask.
Wow.
So this is a 25-year. I would recommend with the older spirits, and you can do it with the youngers as well, but holding it in your mouth and giving it a swirl and holding it in a swirl. It takes 25 years to make this. We ask that you take more than 25 seconds to enjoy it. Because a lot of times I see people, it's a shot of whiskey, and they knock it back, and what's the fun in that?
That is clearly an American thing.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
Yeah. All right, so here's the toast. For there's no foe like fear, and no friends like cheer, and sunshine will flash at our call. So let's crown love king, and let us all sing. It's a mighty good world, after all.
Oh, man. This guy's got a million of them. Slander. I don't know, but the older we get, the more I'm liking it. This one's got some spice.
Oh, lots of spice.
Yeah. Whoa, I like this.
Yeah.
Man, this is cool. Oh my gosh.
Now, we might have some folks who enjoy the 12 over the 25. Just because it's older doesn't necessarily mean it's better for you.
No, I understand. It's just how I'm reacting to it. And I mean, it's not that I like all of them, but it just seemed as we went deeper into time, I just seemed to like them more.
Yeah.
I didn't plan that, but it's happening.
Well, it is a unique flavor experience for each distillery, and even within each distillery, the different casks and the different locations of the warehouses will give you different experiences of the whiskies themselves.
It's amazing how subtle all of this is. It's just fascinating.
It's why so many people. It's why we have so many whiskies here at Copper and Oak. There's just a world to explore, and once you, I compare single malt Scotch more to wine than any other kind of spirit, because when you start to understand the intricacies and the nuances of production and location and maturation, really the world is your oyster. Which I should also mention.
I did my research.
There we
You
go.
had this whiskey oyster pairing. Can you elaborate? What the heck was that?
Well,
I never heard of this. It sounds like having French fries and soup. It just didn't seem to make sense.
When it comes to whiskey pairings, food of the region goes well with whiskies of the region. So the Highland whiskies go well with beef, with lamb, with venison. The island whiskies go well with seafood.
This is crazy.
Scallops and langoustines, lobster, and we do a pour called the Beaumont Oyster Luge. So you sip the oyster brine,
Right.
you sip the Beaumont 12 year, and then you eat the oyster, and then you pour the Beaumont 12 into the oyster shell.
What?
And yeah, luge on.
Oh my God, that sounds like a party.
It just opens up all these other flavors and increases the experience of whiskey as well as the experience of oysters.
I never would have thought. That is, I gotta get invited to one of those gigs.
Well, definitely, and if you're at your local oyster bar, and they should have a bottle of Beaumont on the back bar, give it a go. It's really worth the treat.
Okay. I'm sure I'll amaze my friends. All right. So, was that all of Beaumont? Or
That was all of the Beaumonts that we have
All right.
for today.
Okay.
We're now going to go to the other side of the island of Islay. And Islay is only 3,200 people and 10 distilleries, so it's also called the Happy Island. We make a lot of whiskey on Islay. And we're going to go to the number one selling Islay single malt Scotch, Laphroaig. And it is the Hollow by the Bay, the beautiful Hollow by the Bay is what it means. And the name of the island is Islay.
Islay, yeah, not Islay. I know, I did my research.
Yeah. It's a Gaelic word. It means the island of Ireland. We're very simple folk on the island.
Yeah,
Don't beat around the bush.
It's pretty
but
clear.
It's a good way to remember how to pronounce the name. Islay means island, or Islay have another whiskey.
Oh.
There you go. So let's do that, shall we?
Sure.
I think we're going to start off with Laphroaig Select.
All right.
Laphroaig Select is, yes, that one there. When we say select, what we've done is we've selected 5 different types of casks in the maturation of this whiskey. 2 different sherry casks, Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez, also known as PX casks. A used American bourbon barrel, 200 liter cask, and a 125 liter American bourbon barrel cask. We call those the quarter casks, which we'll be tasting later on as well. And a new American oak barrel that hasn't had any bourbon in it. So those 5 different types of casks are aging the Laphroaig new make spirit and are going to impart different flavors on it. And then we marry all those casks and we add water and bring it down to bottling strength. So a lot of times people will ask about these, what we call no age statement whiskeys. How old are they? It's not about the age, it's about bottling to a flavor profile. So, and back in the day, historically, they weren't sitting around waiting 15, 25 years. They were bottling it right from the barrel, or they were marrying different barrels to create these flavor profiles. So that's what we've done with this one. And also when we were first finalizing the spirit for this bottling, if you come to visit us at the distillery, and did the tour. We invited you up to the office. We had 6 samples laid out blind. We asked you to taste them and tell us which one you liked. And this was the winning selection. This was selected by Laphroaig drinkers to be our next bottling. So here's the toast. I must go down to the sea today, to the lonely sea in the sky, and all I ask is an Islay cask and the friends to drink it dry.
Oh my gosh.
Slàinte.
Slàinte, I think you have 1 million of those.
Now we move to another side of the island.
Oh, I can taste the other side of the island.
Yeah, we're on the we're all the distilleries except for one on the island are located right on the coast, and you're getting more of the maritime, but it's smoky.
I'm getting some heat.
Yeah, well, and this is actually bottled at 40% ABV. So, but the smoky quality brings out the heat in it as well.
Absolutely. Well, I know when we met, you said to me that Laphroaig is the barbecue of whiskeys.
Yep.
Care to elaborate?
Yeah, let me tell you what. Let me step out for a sec. Grab this.
Okay. What the heck is
To show
that?
you, this is where that barbecue influence comes from.
Okay.
This is Peat.
Hi, Pete.
What do you call a 2,000-year-old Scot? Peat.
Oh my God.
Right?
You got it with the words.
I'll be here all week.
I know.
So peat, what peat is decayed vegetative matter. There are peat bogs all over the world. The largest ones are in Finland. You get them up in northern Germany. In Ireland, it's called turf. In Canada, 25% of the world's peat supplies are found at that in Canada. Because of that latitude, you get a lot of rainfall. So you get a lot of vegetation. The vegetation lives, dies, and decomposes, and becomes compressed over hundreds of thousands of years. So what we use this to heat our homes with in Scotland on the island of Islay.
Really?
And because it's raining so many days out of the year, it's a damper climate. It takes longer to dry the barley. So we are one of 10 distilleries that still does what's called floor maltings. We're going to soak the barley, 7 tons of it, let it grow for 6 days. At the end of the 6 days, it has a consistency of sprouts. So we need to stop the barley from growing, and our fuel source is our local fuel source, peat. So we shovel all the grain into a room that's got a mesh screen floor.
Yeah, I did some research. It was crazy.
And then from down below, we light the peat fires.
Yeah, it's the malting floor. Correct?
Correct.
Holy schmoly. Man, you got a license for that thing?
No.
I could tell. Oh my God. Oh my God. What?
So the barley's been growing, and underneath, for the next 15 to 18 hours, we're going to dry the barley over these peat fires.
Okay.
Now on Islay, where it's raining 320 days a year,
Yeah.
it's going to take long to dry the barley. So the same way you sit around a campfire on a damp night, that smoke clings to you, same thing's going to happen to the barley. So when we talk about whiskey being smoky and peaty,
Yeah.
that's it right there. What I like to call the holy smoke. So here's the thing. The peat that we dig up out of the earth in the highlands of Scotland is more decomposed pine trees. The peat on the island of Islay is more decomposed seaweed. So it's like the difference between sitting around a campfire in the forest versus sitting around a bonfire on the beach.
The beach.
This is the beach bonfire. And you're getting more of the driftwood notes, the seaweed, the kelp notes.
This is crazy.
So that's absorbed into the barley. We then grind that barley down into a fine grist. It has the consistency of a muesli. And then we add hot water, that's mashing. And that creates a liquid wort. And then we add yeast to that and ferment, and we make a beer, a very smoky beer. And then we distill it in copper pot stills. It's a 2-step distillation process, which produces a spirit that is pretty fiery at around 72% alcohol by volume. So we need to soften it out and round it out. How do we do that? By putting it in a barrel. And you think of the shape of the barrel literally knocking the edges off this hot young raw spirit.
Mm.
So With that said, let's taste the 10-year,
Okay.
which is the classic Laphroaig. 10 years in the barrel. And when we say 10 years, it's 250 barrels that are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Married, and then add water, bring it down to bottling strength of 43%. So the nose on this one, I'm going to say, do you smell the smoke? Do you? Of course you do, because I was burning.
Well, you got the smoke all around me. It's in my clothes.
I'll show you another way of nosing the whiskey. You go into the warehouse, you want to get a sample out of the barrel, you have what's called a copper dog or a copper thief. In the wine business, they call it a wine thief or a valanche. You knock the bung out of the bung hole of the barrel, insert the copper dog, draw off your sample, put it into your glass. But if you don't have a copper dog, you don't have a glass, the other way of nosing the whiskey is this. You put your hand over the opening of the barrel and roll the barrel a wee bit. So put your hand over the opening of your barrel, get a good seal on it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah. Go with me here. Here we go. Ready? And roll the barrel. All right, now glass down. Rub your hands together, some heat going, some friction going. This burns off the alcohol, releases the esters, burns off the congeners. Get them nice and hot. Open the doors to the warehouse, open the barrel, and
Whoa!
welcome to Laphroaig.
Get out!
More of the wood notes this way, more of the sweetness.
That's crazy!
Isn't that fantastic?
Yo, that was really neat.
Yeah. Well, and you notice it evaporates very quickly.
Yeah,
If you're to do this with a cognac, your hands will be very sticky from the sugars.
Ah.
But all the sugars are consumed during fermentation, so another good reason for drinking the single malts. No bad sugar hangover, no carbohydrates, so it's Atkins friendly, good for diabetics, cure to the Zika, and no, it's not.
Oh my gosh.
And gluten free, only 60 calories. Now, if you're driving, you need to wash your hands before you go. Honest officer, I was just rubbing it on my body. The guy in the little green skirt told me to do it.
Oh man.
So, here's the toast. May there be no hell, and if there is, I'll see you at the bar.
Slut.
Slut. There's that barbecue.
Hell yeah, you talk about other side of the island.
Yeah.
Holy schmoly. They doing brisket over there? Like, whoa.
Well, what style brisket is it? That's the question. Is it Memphis? Is it
I don't
Kansas City? Or is it Carolina?
I don't know, but I'm glad you know your regions. And
Well,
in your game, you have to know your regions. Holy schmoly. Woo.
It's an acquired taste.
I like it, but it's totally, man,
Yep.
it's cross town.
Yep. It's our crosstown whiskey.
Totally different taste.
Yeah.
I don't want to say flavor profile for the sound like ridiculous, but wow.
Well, let's dive into that maturation influence a little bit further and go to our next whiskey, which is 10-year sherry oak. So 8 years in bourbon, and then another 2 years in Oloroso sherry casks.
Well, I see that it's darker.
Yep.
So that makes sense based
Yep.
on what you just described.
So this is a new variation for us at Laphroaig, because 99% of our casks at Laphroaig are bourbon barrels, and primarily from Maker's Mark. We have a partnership with them in the company, so we get excellent quality bourbon casks from them. But this is using, for the final 2 years, Oloroso sherry casks from Spain. So the nose on this one,
It was sweet for me.
yeah, not as much as the smoke.
No.
No,
No.
yeah,
No. I still got smoke in my mouth from the last taste.
yeah.
For real.
It'll stick with you.
Yeah.
Well, because it's raining so much, you want to be reminded of the fire. So that certainly is gonna keep you warm. It's Scotland wrapping its arms around you. And keeping you warm. So let's do the toast here, shall we?
Certainly.
I'm gonna grab this bottle here
Okay.
for the toast. So here's a bottle. and an honest man. What would you wish for more? Who knows when his life may end, what his share may be a care? Then catch the moments as they fly and use them as you ought. Believe me, happiness is shy and comes not always when sought. Cheers.
Cheers. Man, he's got a million of them, guys. Sweet,
Yeah,
but spice.
yeah. No, those sherry notes really add a nutty spiciness to it.
Yeah.
Plus the dark, like raisin notes.
Yeah, there's definitely some dark. I like it.
And again, same spirit off the still. Now you've tried 3 variations of Laphroaig.
Man.
All different in their styles, slightly different. The smoke's there. You'll never, that's such a big part of.
No, it's still there, but it balanced out well with the sweetness
Yeah.
in that one. There's no question. Like
Okay.
that first one, the smoke was.
We've got one last one to taste,
All right.
and this is Laphroaig Quarter Cask. This is our second biggest seller. We start off with the spirit aging in 200-liter bourbon barrels for 5 to 11 years. We marry all that whiskey, and then we put it another up to 8 months in a quarter cask, which is 125 liter. It's a smaller barrel. It's the kind of size of cask that 2 men back in the day could lift up and put onto a pack horse and
Okay.
to take it to market. So by putting it in more a smaller cask, you're getting more of the wood influence, more surface contact wood to whiskey. So this gives you more of the bourbon cask notes, the vanilla, the caramel, the coconut notes. I call this one the Wild Child. This is a lively little whiskey.
Really? Wow.
It kind of dances around in the mouth. Nice nose on it.
Yeah.
So
He
here's-
says the wild child, so I'm concerned because it seems very innocent.
Well, again, if you find it's too hot, add some water to it. Find the flavor that you enjoy. When we're sampling the warehouses, we're nosing a couple of hundred a day. Now we wouldn't make it to lunch if we were actually tasting, but when we narrow down our selection and it comes to actually tasting the whiskey, we'll add water and bring it down to 20% alcohol. 20%, that's a lot of water added to it. But you find the depth of the spirit that way. You find all these other flavors that are deep within that whiskey. So again, you add as much water as you need to find the flavor that you enjoy. So here's the toast to the Wild Child. Here's to fighting, cheating, stealing, and drinking. If you fight, may you fight alongside my brother. If you cheat, may you cheat death. If you steal, may you steal another's heart. And if you drink, may you drink with me. Cheers.
Oh, man, this guy.
I'm not sure how exciting it is for your viewers to be watching us drinking whiskey. I hope they are joining us along with a dram in hand.
Well, I agree, but unbeknownst to you, these notes are here for a reason. I have questions
Excellent.
that I know you can answer because I found out so much about you in my research. I want to know. All right, now that was incredible, but I did a lot of research, so I've got a stack of questions for you.
Bring it on.
I know you have all the answers, I'm sure. So, Laphroaig is the only whiskey to carry a royal warrant. Why is that? I mean, I know what happened. I heard King Charles, but
Yeah, the Royal Warrant recognizes contributions to the community in
Yes.
the United Kingdom.
familiar.
It was originally Prince Charles,
Yes.
but it is now King,
King
Charles. And each Royal Warrant receiver has to reapply after a period of time. So we're still waiting for the next Royal Warrant reception. But it recognizes sustainability in the community as well as contributions. We are the only distillery in Scotland currently that receives the Royal Warrant.
I know.
And it's the ostrich feathers on the bottle.
Yeah.
That is
Oh, that's
the
what those
Royal
are?
Warrant there.
Yeah.
With the phrase "Ich diem," which means "I serve."
Mm. Why do you think that's the only whiskey that has it? Just because Prince Charles at that time came on a tour and
It
said,
is his favorite whiskey.
That's what he said.
Laphroaig 15 year, and so as a result, he endorsed Laphroaig.
Wow.
We see it as a great honor because it is not given out easily.
He made a visit recently, correct?
Yes, he did. He came. It was last year. He came to visit his square foot of land. He is a landowner.
I want to talk about that.
Friends of Laphroaig.
That is a wonderful segue. I read it, but I want you to share it. Whom are the Friends of Laphroaig?
So the Friends of Laphroaig is a program that was developed by our distillery manager 30 years ago. We are celebrating 30 years of the Friends of Laphroaig program. Ian Henderson, really an iconic figure in the whiskey pantheon, that was so hospitable to guests coming over to the distillery. A lot of times you ended up having supper with Ian and his wife. He just would welcome you in.
What?
And then he would also write letters to you, thanking you and sending out letters. He was just so hospitable that they decided to create a program called Friends of Laphroaig, which entitles you to a square foot of land on the island of Islay. So you come to visit your plot, and we put you in a pair of welly boots like those there, give you a flag from your country, and shove you out to the field, and you go find your plot and stake your claim. And you claim your rent, which is a miniature of Laphroaig, and you can visit as many times as you like. If the economy tanks here, you know you got a place to live in Scotland. Plus, you get invitations to come to different events that we do around the world for Friends of Laphroaig. We have over 600,000 Friends of Laphroaig in the United States alone.
What?
Yeah, we have a lot of ardent followers of Laphroaig.
So I heard upon the visit you're given something for you to...
Yeah, that's you get the miniature of Laphroaig.
Yeah, that's...
And a certificate officially stating your owner, your lease ship.
So the dram is kind of my rent.
Yes.
It's a pretty good deal. I may have to inquire about that.
Well, the information is in the package. In the tubes, there's a brochure that's got the code on it. We're moving to new packaging soon, which the information will be on the bottle itself about how to become a friend of Laphroaig.
Oh, that's smart. That's good marketing.
Yeah.
Way to go, team. Way to go. Way to go. Can you know, I've been hearing about this for so long. Can you explain to me all of this about barrels? Meaning this. What's the oldest barrel that's still being used at your distillery? How did this all come about in terms of, hey, we'd like to use your barrels and let's take your barrels and like, how has this happened? How long has this been happening? Yes, I understand that since, you know, the 18th, 19th century, we've had barrels, but can you just explain to me this phenomenon via trade and spirits?
We've had barrels for thousands of years. But it's historical, it's economic and cultural influences. It was because the sherry casks were coming up from Spain that we would empty up cask, and here's a perfect container for us to bring it to market. Really, aged whiskey didn't become a phenomenon until the 1950s, 1960s. It was just primarily being used for blended Scotch, and the single malt category really didn't become prominent until a couple of distilleries started promoting single malt as a category in the 1960s. But the bourbon barrels really came into play. That's 90% of the casks in Scotland today are bourbon barrels. Post-Prohibition, there was a law went into effect. You can only use a bourbon barrel once here in America. Perfect for us in Scotland because we don't want to use a brand new barrel, too many tannins in the wood. So send them over to us, we can reuse them. because we don't want to use a brand because of those tannins. So also economically, the cost for us to buy a used bourbon barrel is about $175. An Oloroso sherry butt is upwards of $900 to $1,000. So
What?
yeah, and the consistency of the sherry cask is not as solid as the bourbon industry. The bourbon industry is doing so well these days, so the quality of the casks are really at the best they've ever been.
What's the oldest barrel you have in the distillery? Like, do you guys do
We
that?
currently at Laphroaig we have a 37-year-old.
Whoa.
And we have just at Beaumont released a 52-year-old Beaumont from the 1960s.
Wow, that's neat.
They're very extremely limited, but incredibly exclusive. And there's a series known as the Black Beaumonts from 1964, which are much sought after and really pull a great price at the auction houses.
Why are they called the Black Beaumonts?
Because of the rock, the volcanic rock that is around the harbor where the distillery is located.
Okay, Beaumont. All right, let's see. Oh, okay. We talked about water when we first met. Talk to me about the Kilbride stream.
Well, the Kilbride Dam
Yeah.
stream is the water source for Laphroaig.
Yes.
It is, as we mentioned earlier, during the summer I'll take people up there on the tour, and there are some summers where there'll be a mud flat, just because the rain has been scarce. So that's why we would historically shut down the distillery for those 6 to 8 weeks. But it provides water. It comes from up in the hills. It comes from the rains. So if you come and visit us and it's raining, that's a good thing. That's just whiskey waiting to be made. And because water is really the biggest ingredient for whiskey making. So every distillery has its own water source, and the Kilbride Dam and stream is ours that is much protected because at one point our neighbors to the west at Lagavulin at one point in the turn of the century rerouted the water source, the stream, so that they could use our water.
What?
And we had to take them to court to get our water back. So there's a bit of water wars because it can be so rare.
It's a dirty game. Well, I think that's enough questions for today. I was going to ask you, I kind of understand it now. I saw one of your patches on one of your bags, Protectors of the Peat.
Yeah, the Protectors of the Peat is a group within the Beam Suntory company that are specialists for us around the country. They have been trained on the Scotch portfolio for us at Beam Suntory and activate various events for us for our Beam Suntory scotches. So they've been to the distillery, they've cut peat, they've turned the barley, they've helped make with the whiskey.
Whoa.
And they understand it from the top down, and so they're ready and willing to talk about the stories of Laphroaig and Beaumont and Auchentoshan.
I've heard, rumor has it, that you do the training.
Well, I've been in the industry for 27 years now and representing Laphroaig for 17 years, so I've been around for a wee bit.
What he means to try to say, ladies and gentlemen, is yes. The answer is yes. Well, that's all I really have. I gotta tell you.
Well,
Yeah?
I got a surprise for you.
What?
Well, you were admiring my kilt before, and I just thought that perhaps maybe we should put you in a kilt. What do you think? Are you in for it?
I mean, well, you have to get into it to be in for it.
Well, I just happened to bring all the accoutrements for setting you up for wearing a kilt. Would you be into it?
Yeah, of course. I'm a Ferguson.
Absolutely.
I'm supposed to be living in a kilt.
Live it proud.
All right. Let's do it.
Excellent.
Oh my God.
You had enough whiskey?
Help. Yeah.
Of course, the question is, what do you wear under the kilt?
Well, I did the research. If it's a rental, you don't go commando. That's what it read. That's what it read. Don't give me any Brooking there. That's what I read. No commando if it's a rental.
Stand there. And all right, there. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Thank you. Seriously. Thank you.
All right, Reggie, how do you feel now? A true Ferguson, now that you are dressed in the Scottish Highland regalia.
I feel great, to really be honest.
There can be only one. And you know, it's a warm day, but even on the cold days, don't worry about it. The hot air rises. So this is a classic kilt here, the Highland kilt. This is a 8.5 yard kilt. Historically, what they were what they called the great kilts were 4 to 5 meters, 14 feet of material, which you would lie down on the ground. You would first pleat them, and then lie down on the ground and roll it up like a skirt around your waist, and then you would take the extra over your shoulder.
Whoa.
And that was your sleeping bag at night. That's what you slept in.
What?
And you would use it tight, and during the winters you would soak it so that it would freeze, and that would keep you warmer from the cutting winds, the cold winds.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's called a Brooking in the Gaelic, which means checkered in the Gaelic. And every clan has its own tartan.
Yes.
Right? Ferguson has their own tartan. Technically, I'm wearing the Laphroaig tartan, but I'm a Robertson from Clan Duncan, Clan Donachie. And the colours represent different aspects of the culture of the clan. This Laphroaig tartan, the green is the green of Islay, the black is the black of the Peat. The gold is the amber is the grain of the barley. The white is the whitewash of the distillery, and the blue is the blue of the sea. So it all represents the culture of the family.
Wow. Well, mine, as far as I know, is green and blue with an orange overcheck.
So this is a proximity.
I know. Yeah.
It's not exactly
I
like
know.
a Ferguson,
Right.
but it's a kilt. And it's not a dress. If somebody says nice dress, you say that's why it's called a kilt, because if you call it a dress again, I'm going to have to kilt you. Which you have now are provisioned in case if you want to show them your.
Yeah.
This is that's called a skian do. It's Gaelic. It means black knife. It's your last line of defense.
Oh.
You lose all your other weapons in battle. This is what's going to keep you alive. And you've also got a kilt pin there on the outside, and that was historically used to keep you closed up.
Aha.
And of course, no pockets.
No pockets.
So that's what the sporran is for.
Ah.
That's your wee bag.
It's a wee bag.
And historically, what you would do is keep your oatmeal, your oats in there. And if you needed to, Rob Roy was famous for keeping his oats and his whiskey in the sporran, and they called it whiskey chucks.
Whiskey chucks. What was the chucks?
that was just the combination of the whiskey and the oatmeal together. They're like whiskey balls.
Oh my gosh. I'm just, only here can a black guy have a black knife, and it's all right. Sorry what I did there. Well, what more do you have to tell me? I have stuff to share with you, but you probably know a heck of a lot more.
Well, the kilts, you know, there's long been a tradition with the kilts. Each family has its own family kilt.
Right.
As I mentioned, I'm a Robertson.
Right.
The whole 9 yards. But young Angus is set to be married. He goes to the local kilt maker to have a kilt made. The kilt maker's, oh yes, I've got your family tart and I make a nice 9-yard kilt for you. But oh, I got 10 yards. We Scots are rather thrifty. We're born with deep pockets and short arms. So kilt maker says, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make a nice lovely scarf for your lovely Fiona, your bride-to-be. Keep her warm in those long cold winter months. Perfect. So the day before the wedding, he goes to pick up the kilt, and it's a bonny kilt. He's so excited, he decides he wants to show the lovely Fiona. So he puts his kilt on, puts his coat on, goes running through the fields, not realizing that he loses his kilt along the way. Gets to her door, knocks on the door, opens his jacket wide open. She opens the door wide open. He says, well, what do you think? She says, oh my God, it's more beautiful than I ever thought it would be. He's like, oh no, but wait, that's not the best part is. The best part is I've got an extra yard you can wrap around your neck. True story.
Yipes. So my clan often was in Argyllshire.
Argyll, yes.
Argyll, yeah.
Yeah, that's on the
Yeah,
west
so-
coast of Scotland.
Okay.
Very close. You go through Argyll to get to the island of Islay.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, I got that down. And yeah, this is probably in Gaelic, but I'm descendant of the ancient king of Scots,
You are.
Fergus
you are-
Moore Mock. I don't know. Man, I don't
you-
speak this.
No, but you are royalty.
I know. I knew that. And the current chief of the clan is Sir Adam Ferguson of Kirkaren.
Karen.
Kirkaren, sorry. New York City accent.
That's in Argyll, and it's a village in Argyll. You have to come visit your clan seat one day.
I'd like to. I don't know if they have a seat for me, but
We've always got a seat for a Ferguson.
oh, well, that's very kind. So Gaelic, you clearly speak Gaelic. So Ferguson is a descendant Gaelic-wise from McFergus,
Mac means son,
right?
son of.
Son
Fergus.
of, yeah.
Mac Fergus.
So son of the angry. It's definitely me. Or son of the bold and proud.
That's it.
Also me.
Bolder and prouder now that you're in the kilt.
Well, should we take it for a test drive?
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right. Oh my God. Wish me
We're
luck.
out of here.
Oh, my toes. Logan, please tell me when to stop walking when we do this.
Out the door, gents.
Out the door.
Reminds me of the song Scotsman where at the end he says, lad, I don't know where you've been, but it seems you would. First prize, yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Let's go.